ever wonder why on just random days you're just in a really crappy mood all day long?
I'm always in a crappy mood all day long.
Well, there's a very good reason for that. On our podcast, A Date with Murder, we are going to break down what horrible true crime event happened on this date in history. Join me, I'm Kelly.
And I'm Ashley.
As we go on this depressing but sometimes hilarious journey together. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Amen. Oh my God.
We have a podcast here that might provide that answer for you. It's called, what is that banging in the background?
My cat's eating. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She can't hear you. And how did he even get a hold of the refrigerator shelves?
Before we begin this week's episode, I'd like to start with a content warning. This podcast includes foul language and includes discussions of violent crimes. Some topics may be triggering and may include depictions of sexual assault, gore, torture, suicidal ideation, or discussions of mental health. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
Don't close the case because you are assuming something. You're making an assumption and you can't prove it. Don't we say without a reasonable doubt? Doesn't the justice system send people to jail if they have any kind of a glimmer? Just look at the O.J. Simpson case. My gosh. When you implant doubt in someone's mind, people are going to go with it. And she was a person. She deserves respect.
Last week, we discussed the mystery surrounding Kimbrala Jo Lair. We discussed her background, her family dynamic, and the events that led up to this crazy clusterfuck of a story.
This week, we will dive into this some more. You will hear a lot more from Carissa and Brittany, and we will conclude with a few theories that we have made.
Amanda and I both will sit here with you all, our audience, and try to figure out what the fuck happened to Kimbrala Jo Lair.
Yeah, what happened to Kim?
Her family is desperately searching for answers in the face of heedless apathy.
A Nefarious Nightmare presents Deep Ellum, NightScare on Elm Street, Part 2.
Just a brief heads up, and we just don't have top of the line interview equipment, so again I apologize, and I apologize in advance about the interview's audio quality. Go join our Patreon and help us out.
Yeah, we will shout you out. Lots of great bonus content in there too.
When speaking with Carissa and Brittany, I asked them to tell me a fond memory of Kim. The following is a clip of them doing just that.
Yeah, so our moms were sisters, and so her mom was the oldest, my mom the middle, and then we have our other aunt who is our Aunt Latana, the youngest. So there's 3 girls, drove a lot of cities and towns in the family crazy. But so now there is Brittany and being the oldest niece. And then me, and then we have 2 younger, my Aunt Latana's kids. And we really are like sisters. And we always joke around saying well, our moms are sisters, but I'm pretty sure we're supposed to be sisters too. So that's something we always, when we take pictures together, we always say that. Our moms are sisters, but so are we.
Yeah. And so kind of the thing of about both of our moms, anytime Carissa would be getting in trouble, here comes my mom. Getting after Aunt Kim, saying, you better quit. She's a great girl. Stop it. Well, vice versa with, my brother and I. Here comes Aunt Kim. Aunt Kim had my back. My mom had Carissa's back and vice versa. So my mom actually passed away 14 months ago before my aunt. And so it's been really tragic for our family right now because they were best friends. My aunt actually lived here the last 9 months of my mother's life. She had a 1 in a million disease called LEMS, and so it completely shut down her nerves, and she was completely bedridden. And but they were tight. You know, my Aunt Kim got my mom on as an American Airlines flight attendant because my Aunt Kim was a recruiter for American Airlines, and they were best friends. And just the 14 months that my mom's been gone, this happened to my Aunt Kim. So it's very, tragic, and it is definitely pushing us more to, not settle for this, because my Aunt Kim was all about justice, the least we can do for her.
And she would do it for anyone.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. She taught me how to drive in Dallas, and I was 14 years old. She had a Honda Civic Standard, and she took me to the airport, DFW, by the way, in the late 90s, and said, all right, drive me to the airport. And if you can drive to the airport, you can drive anywhere. So it was chaos. I mean, she was drinking wine because she wasn't driving, but I was 14 and didn't have a hardship or anything, and really didn't drive a Standard. So, but I've always remembered, if I ever want to get home, I just go eat.
I have a really good, fond, favorite memory, but then I have like a funny story about her. Is it okay if I share both of those? One short. Okay. So the fond memory is I was probably like 9 years old, and my mom again worked for American Airlines, like Brittany said. And I think she was in the paralegal department at this time. And I was with her. She was off one weekend, and she just got like a hair of grass and was like, let's go to the beach. And this memory actually just came to me literally 2 days ago, honestly. And I just like came flooding back. And I was like, go to the beach, like what? So she just put me in the car. We drove to DFW, got on standby to a flight to California, and literally flew to California in the morning. And she took me we went out to eat when we got there on the beach. It was Venice Beach. It was where she absolutely wanted to go. We were walking around, I went in the water. She was taking pictures of me, got dressed, and then we were walking around, and, people are like, skating, on the, sidewalks and stuff. And literally Farrah Fawcett, before she passed away, rest in peace, was there playing tennis. And my mom, I didn't know, I was 9. I did not know who Farrah Fawcett was. I did not know the original Charlie's Angels at that point. And she was like, it's Farrah Fawcett, oh my gosh. Like, still had the Farrah Fawcett hair and everything. I mean, and my mom totally fangirled over her, like on the other side of this tennis court. So we just sat there for like an hour, watching her play tennis. And then before you knew it, she was like, oh, we got to get back to the airport. And we were home by that evening. It was just like a day trip. We flew all the way like 2,000 miles across the country. Just to go to Venice Beach for the day. Okay, so the second story is, this is more of like mine and my mom's relationship, even going into like adulthood, foreverhood. So I was like in 8th grade and started a new school, and for some reason or another, mom was not there to get me when school let out. So I just, went to the cafeteria where you're supposed to wait. And if your parents, well, and so I'm sitting there at one of the cafeteria tables with my friends, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, here comes my mom, and she's like, Krista Bray, hello. Starts whistling, pointing, all the things, clapping, snapping, whatever. Like, I'm here to get you, babe. I'm here, let's go. I'm signing her out, like, didn't even bother to like actually go to the supervisor and like sign me out, anything. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm mortified now. That's great. Awesome. Let me just walk across the cafeteria. So I start walking, and I'm like, go, please. 3 paces in front. 3 paces, please. And she starts walking, and she's 3 paces in front, just like I asked her to be. And she literally, so I have my hair kind of on top of my head. So my mom always had long brunette hair, and it's literally, it's right here though. It's like a fountain flowing over, always a fountain. had a black NASCAR sweatshirt, paint all over it. I went to a very small private Christian school too. Like I graduated with a class of 30 on the up and up, very, very, very small. And NASCAR sweatshirt, neon yellow sweatpants with pink beaded, like with rhinestones and beadwork, high heels, open-toed high heels, blue, always blue, with blue ankle weight. And she is living it up. I mean, I've been living it up all day, apparently. And so I realized what she's wearing, and I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. We're going to the car. Well, guess who's opening the door for us when we leave? Our sweet dean of this private Christian school. And he's like, Kim, oh man. He's like, and she's like, oh, Dean Adel, we just love you so much. She had to stop and talk, of course, because that was, I mean, my mom knew no other way. And she's like, oh, Dean Adel, we just love you. You're the sweetest man. He's like, oh, well, we're just so blessed to have Carissa here with us this year. Yeah, so he goes to open the door, and my mom was driving a Lexus at the time, windows down, radio all the way up, and it is literally Genuine Pony blaring from her car, literally just sidewalk distance from the front door of my school. And all I can hear is him open the door, and it's like, you want it? Let's do it. And I was just like, oh my God. And he looked at me and he was like, I'll be praying for you.
Yes, it's awesome.
So we got into a big fight when I got in the car, and I was like, never come inside, never, just, I will stand out on the street. You will pick me up. And she was like, oh, babe, it's okay. It's so fine. I mean, she was laughing it up. I mean, it was, we laughed about that just literally probably 4 weeks before she passed away. We were talking about it, and we both got a kick of it, you know, now. But then it was pretty mortifying. When I got the call that Mom was found, after we had basically put a PBA out for her and all that, I was in San Antonio, supposed to be going to a wedding that Saturday night. And so my sister, basically, we checked out of the hotel, gathered all our shit, and hauled ass here home. Took us almost 7 hours to get here, just to be with the family, like, immediately. And that was like the worst 7-hour drive of my life.
Okay, Amanda, go ahead and start everyone out with what Deep Ellum is.
Deep Ellum is, or at least was, known as a place in downtown Dallas where misfits, freaks, weirdos, occult fanatics, tattoo enthusiasts, art lovers, music lovers, outcasts, and otherwise open-minded people would all come together and celebrate being exactly who they are. It's the entertainment district of downtown Dallas, peppered with bars, live show venues. It's also close to a pretty dense homeless population in what used to be a shopping center parking lot.
So basically it was a place for everyone to go out and get trash drunk and just be free, you know? But no, but as far as entertainment, I mean, we're not talking Mardi Gras or anything like that, although I'm sure Deep Ellum would possibly get away with something like that. Deep Ellum, from my memory, was sprinkled with tattoo and body modification shops, vintage record stores, you know, places where you could buy like 9 Inch Nails memorabilia, places where indie bands and sometimes not so indie bands would perform. There was even this place called The Church. I believe it was like Liquid Lounge or something, and I could be totally wrong. Was it Liquid or Lizard Lounge during the day, and then like on Thursday nights and Sundays it was The Church. And you know what The Church was where goth kids would go for a night of fun and fellowship. You know, not like, you know, actual church fellowship. I'm talking, it would be like a night of dancing, maybe showing a little skin, sitting around smoking cigarettes, hanging out with those you can find common ground with, which was pretty much anyone society would deem outcasts and freaks. And may I say, as a teenager, I loved me some Deep Ellum. All of it. And I'm not sure how much it's changed because, you know, the last time I was there was way back in the 1900s. But it was back when I was, still doing music, but, evidently it hasn't changed too much, except for maybe coronavirus.
All right, so there's an overpass in Deep Ellum where Highway 75 and I-45 split, a mile away from the apartment where Kimbrala Jo Lair and her mother lived. There are mentions of a crack in the bridge or overpass which you will hear about more. But basically, it was a stormy night in October 13th and into the morning of October 14th. Kim's body was found underneath this overpass near the 2400 block of Elm Street.
Police immediately ruled out foul play and guessed that she had either accidentally fallen from the bridge or had been suicidal. Case closed, right? Well, yeah, but only according to law enforcement. Others, including all of us and many people following along with this case, feel differently.
Yep. So, according to Brittany, when she found out, she was on her way to a Styx concert. Mm-hmm. Shout out Styx. So, upon hearing what had happened, she immediately turned around to go back. She wanted a realistic answer. She knew she didn't fall from the bridge because she would have had to walk over 5 lanes of traffic.
Wow.
Her apartment was a mile from the location where she was found. Brittany knew something was wrong, and she immediately called the patrol officer she spoke with about the missing persons report made, and immediately said, quote, "Hey, I want to know who fucking did this," end quote. She was upset and hitting her steering wheel and almost broke her hand. He had told her he didn't know she was found, and then called her back and said that he had told her that the crack of a bridge had just haunted him and that it's not correct terminology.
Wow. Weird.
So based off of all this evidence, there's literally no way she just fell off a bridge, end quote.
And you see, what business does a 53-year-old woman have, who, by the way, was not suicidal? What business does she have walking all the way from her apartment to this overpass on a stormy night at midnight? Kim and her family, being native North Texans, knew that this area was questionable, especially alone in the middle of the fucking night. So aside from being someone known for calling out injustices with the city, why would she choose to walk all the way to the 75 I-45 split? Now, if you're watching a movie like The Happening or like Bird Box, this would be feasible. But those movies are fiction. This is real life, and this is a woman with zero want for suicide. Also important to mention, she was not homeless either, despite some in this case assuming such.
So the 911 call made on the 15th had come from a burner phone. They were told in the beginning that it was a man on his way to work that passed by and saw her. After going to the scene, no one would be able to see her from the road. It is only a one-way street that doesn't have a stoplight until further down, and she was at least 60 feet away from the road. There are huge concrete pillars that you cannot see through. The bridge separation, not a crack as the detective referred to it as, only goes up to 28 feet. Her injuries were not sustainable to a 28-foot fall.
It's just interesting to me, off the script for just a second, that, how should I put this? I just think it's really messed up that these two young weren't taken seriously in the first place. This is their family member. They would obviously know. And I get that you don't want to go off based off of a hunch, but they are simply doing a lot more than what law enforcement should have been doing, But yet they're getting written off like it's infuriating. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
Remember in part 1, according to Carissa, quote, "Police never questioned anyone and also told us there was no surveillance in the area," which isn't true. There's a ton of surveillance, but they basically made their mind up from the get-go that she was some sort of homeless drug abuser up to no good. And may I say that even if that had been the case, those people are still just that, people, and no one deserves to be completely disrespected like that upon their death. We were turned away from the police department the first Monday we showed up to get some answers, as well as the detective hung up on my cousin as we were in the DPD lobby begging with her to allow someone else to speak with us since she was not there to do so, which is fucked up.
Yeah, it is. Carissa also says, quote, "We were able to keep the attention of a Dallas patrol officer who responded to the missing persons report that was filed. He was able to give us some info that the city wouldn't release, as well as he had started helping us follow up with surveillance footage that some companies wouldn't release without police involvement. He was truly a godsend, but we had to keep it hush-hush because technically it is out of his jurisdiction and stepping on a homicide detective's toes.
Yeah, well, at least he was doing way more than they were.
Yeah, absolutely. So she says, my last interaction with him was November 10th, and he told me that he would call me on his next shift. He has not called since, and I believe that someone found out and he possibly got reprimanded.
Brittany states that her Aunt Kim was 100% not suicidal, that she actually spoke out loud against suicide. Both Brittany and Carissa hold fast to this and both believe this is murder. Whether this was an accidental murder or purposeful, we'll leave that up to everyone to decide, but the weirdest thing about this is Kim, she had plans the next day to travel to see her grandson's football game and then stay the weekend with her daughter and her grandkids. She put her own grandchildren and children before anything else in her life.
According to Brittany, she had a laceration on her left arm, like a defense wound, and all her injuries were only on her left side. Yeah. She died from blunt force trauma, according to the independent forensics, American forensics that they had hired due to the Dallas medical examiner not having a cause of death. She was attacked from behind. I'm not positive who would hurt her, but there isn't any evidence that she was ever up on that bridge. I think that someone came up behind her. She turned, put up her left arm. That is how she got the laceration, and then was kicked multiple times to her abdomen. She recently started seeing a neighbor down the street from where she was living. They had only been talking for a couple of weeks before the incident. They were supposed to meet up that week, and he texted her mother on her cell phone asking about Kim. She told him that Kim was murdered and there is an active investigation. Here is a clip from Brittany and Carissa.
My reaction was just
you're full of shit.
Yeah.
Don't believe it. Just because it wasn't my mom. Like there's no reason that a 53-year-old woman in the middle of the night while it's raining is going to walk from her apartment up. What they're saying is she walked up an off ramp, so against the grain of traffic, down it's an eighth of a mile, so almost a mile, across 5 lanes of traffic to accidentally fall off the bridge. No, and not in her sober mind. Absolutely, no. She was supposed to be at her grandson's game the next day. So it was like, you're not understanding the bigger picture here. No, she went and changed that night. She put on nicer clothes. She got her nice purse that Brittany actually had just given her. It's like a pink patent and leather purse. Beautiful, large. She grabbed that the second time she went out. That's a purse you take when you're going out. When you're going somewhere, yes. You don't go and take that purse that has your seeing eye glasses in it, that has makeup toner, like face toner in it. Literally, because I got her purse back. Apparently that wasn't evidence, like her clothes were. And then to say, well, maybe she committed suicide, or maybe it was just an accident. I'm like, no, you don't take that stuff to go commit suicide. If she wanted to throw herself off the bridge, she could have just walked right up and just done it right there. She didn't have to go a mile down. She wasn't suicidal. It just doesn't make sense.
She wasn't suicidal.
No.
At all. The last thing.
And she didn't care that much about what was under a bridge to just lean over a guardrail enough to be like, oh, it looks like I'm falling now. Like, of sober mind.
Or an accident.
Or accidental. Yeah, accidental, undetermined is what it's listed as. And even her toxicology, not with the ME, but with our own forensic pathologist, came back, and her blood alcohol content was a 0.04. So we know she was not like, there was a bottle of wine open, there's like hardly anything taken out of it. Had little foil over it.
No,
Even.
she didn't drink, and it was red wine. You know, like to go to sleep, or
She was not a red wine drinker.
no, she wasn't.
So she, a .04, legal limit's .08. So you're saying she could have driven a car. She could have, this, that, and the other. She was not drunk by any means. It just doesn't make sense. Okay, well, she's sober.
Well, I think that this is some sort of ploy to keep her mouth shut. Kim was vocal about some of these that had happened, not necessarily in Dallas County, but she was very vocal about people doing wrong thing, insurance fraud. I mean, I want to be transparent, and I want to tell you that, that is what sometimes she would do. And, she was having problems with, tickets not getting dismissed and not being able to get her license. And so, not that she had it out for the state of Texas, but she was very vocal, contacting the state of Texas, asking for Governor Abbott, things like this, to the point where, no terroristic threats.
It was about mail fraud.
Yes, and it was
mail
happening.
fraud, social security fraud, and for 3 weeks, every single day, she was calling the state of Texas, and and then the day that she passed, the state of Texas, there was a missed call. Yep, on the caller ID. Pretty convenient.
She wasn't a snitch, which is the crazy thing. Like, she wouldn't snitch. Like, she wouldn't snitch on people. But when it came to, like, the authority and, like, politicians, that she was. I mean, she was very vocal about things. Yes, Mom. Yeah.
We had talked about it, like, I mean, Mom knew too much. She said too much. It's like something, like, because it's just sat inside of us. Like, it was like almost like it's like we knew the inevitable was coming in some point, even to the point where I was like, Mom, hey, just bring it down here. I know Brittany did the same thing. It was just constantly like, but let's not. And then she'd like, she'd whisper. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're, if they're around, they're still here.
She definitely felt like she was being gaslighted a lot. She felt that they were constantly after her. Just like 3 months before this happened, like pretty much a gunshot blew out the car that they don't know if it was a rock or whatever, but the whole driver's side window shattered while they're going down 70 miles an hour.
They were on the highway.
Yes, on 20.
Literally, it like a gunshot, it completely shattered the driver's side glass. My mom was in the passenger seat, and it was just like the most freak thing. And we were like, what the hell? Like, who do you know? Who, like, what are, like, who are you in contact? This is like, it was just insanity.
We have been reclusive for the past 2 months because of the no help. We have seen very strange vehicle activity. Coming down our road. We live in a country 7 miles outside of town. We're the only ones that live on this road. There's been people on bicycles. Very weird things that have been going on, and we've kind of stepped back.
Where like our husbands are literally like have their guns on their hip. Like, even if we're just out in the yard, we're just because surveillance is set up.
But her father was a Dallas firefighter for 35 years and worked those same for 35 years. He died at the age of 54 from esophageal cancer from smoke ventilation because they didn't have correct masks back in the 60s and 70s. That's what I'm saying too, where it's like, but her father was a Dallas firefighter for 35 years in downtown Dallas. He spent a quarter of his life from 18 to 54 years old with the Dallas Police Department, and you're just going to act like this didn't happen. He even died because of that at 54 years old. And that's another reason I'm upset, is because, I mean, why? Did you know on the news, on the actual news, if I look on the Dallas Police Department, they have multiple people who had who died, murdered, that they posted on their website, but not my Aunt Kim. I want to know why. Was she not young enough? Did she not have the right occupation? They assumed she was homeless and disposable. And I have a problem with that because she wasn't. Everyone deserves justice. She had a family that loved her very much. Continue to fight for her. I just want your listeners to know that we just want to know that we're not making all this up in our heads, that there are actual and factual things that don't make sense. They're unexplainable, right? If a case is undetermined, then it's unsolved. That's an unsolved case. Disheartening. It's disheartening. It's disrespectful. She was treated unfairly. She was treated like garbage. That, you know, like she was a menace to society. That's not who she was. She had a mother, a grandmother, she was an aunt, she was a daughter, she was a friend, she was a human. We all have the same rights. It was a life, and her life mattered.
Well, I think definitely something that has to do with cases being mishandled by the police department, and the way not only just they handle cases, but also people's families. I mean, we were turned away, we've been hung up on. Just literally, just the communication, it has not been there. And whenever we try like push, I haven't called, like a week or 10 days. It's like we are just such a menace, even bothering them to call. So definitely some reformation when it comes to that, because that shit, if you're going to be in a place of power, fuck that. No, you should be held accountable. And if you drop the ball in a case, you should be held accountable for it. And in fact, you should apologize and then do your best to actually finish what you should have started this whole time. And then also with mental health awareness, because my mom was diagnosed bipolar. She did have medication for it at one point. But mental health is definitely, I know even for myself, like going to see a counselor, you have to do what you have to do for yourself, but definitely mental health awareness is something that it should not be so stigmatized. It needs to be talked about, because then in turn, when things like this happen, even cops or homicide detectives, like, well, has she ever been in a mental institution? Even if she had, or she wasn't, does that matter? It's a person. Again, we're dealing with human beings here. It's not a stigma. She is not a number. She is not this, that, or the other. It all matters. She matters, and that's essentially what they have done with the entire case. Said, well, she was found in a bad part of town, under a bridge, probably a drug user. There's homeless tents. Literally, you're talking 150 feet away.
It's called Tent City. It's just like, don't blame it. Don't assume. Again, my preacher, bless him, told me what assume means, and he wrote it down, and it makes the ass out of you and me.
And that's been our main thing, is if you're going to say she was on the bridge, whether it was on purpose or an accident, just prove it. Prove that she was on the bridge, because there's ambulance everywhere. Just show us. Show me that she was walking up the bridge. Show me that she fell over on accident, slipped and fell over a 4-foot guardrail. Just show me. And then we can have closure, and we will be able to move on, try to find this moving on that's supposed to happen. But whenever you refuse to do that, then no, we've got questions,
Nothing is consistent of what we've learned, because when we were talking earlier about the construction workers, because where she was found was on a construction site. They're actually building, it's like an Uber thing. And multiple construction workers, like we mentioned earlier. One, he said face, no fall. How he saw her face, I'm not sure. He's the one that showed us. He said, where? Was she right here? He said, yes, right there. We were standing 8 feet away from the 2-inch blood spot. There was only maybe an inch of blood right there. That's not consistent with the fall. It was only 28 feet. Do we not remember the flight attendant that literally from Siberia or whatever, that was a Siberian flight attendant? Yeah, he fell 6.31 miles without a parachute strap. You're going to tell me that my aunt fell 28 feet and her liver was ruptured? You're going to tell me that she had a laceration on her left arm? What is this? That's a defense. She had a bruise right here, a dislocated elbow. a compound fracture in her ulna and her radius. She had no injuries from her hips down. You're going to fall and you don't break a leg, break an ankle. It's not accurate.
Even the detective didn't ask, do you think your mom was in her right mind? And given now the reports that I have, I know that she was. Because yeah, that can make a difference. It's left us for weeks, months, wondering, well, did she do something? Like, I mean, I know if I drink too much of this, that, like, you can do things. But the fact that, hey, no, she was, that's not something that sober people just go out and do,
I wish they would have done more investigative work on who she talked to last. Who was she with last? Who was her boyfriend? Who was her interest? Who was she talking to? Things like that. What was the last thing that she looked up on the computer? I want them to dig. I want them to try to investigate, uncover. That's the whole point of investigator, is you're uncovering. You're trying to figure out, okay, she actually started talking to someone 4 blocks away 3 weeks before this happened.
September the 30th, which, come to find out by doing our own digging, this guy is like, his parents are tied to German nationals, works for a German investment firm. Well, guess who called 911? A German international, supposedly, with a burner phone. Yeah, untraceable. So we thought that was pretty pertinent. Like the guy who said, oh yeah, I see her down here all the time. I mean, I just thought she was homeless. I just saw her last week. I gave her money. She gets food from the food truck. Well, number one, food truck's not there at that time. The food truck doesn't get there till 7 a.m. Talk to other construction workers, show pictures, never seen her before. And she doesn't look like anyone that would be down here. So it's like, well, why does he know so much? And he goes, this construction worker goes, she always comes from that direction, and literally points to where her apartment was. And all these other ones are like, never seen her down here. Doesn't look like anyone would be down here. Nothing. But this guy knew so much about her, like where she came from, where she would be walking from, this, that, and the other.
And I looked at Carissa when he told us. I said, because I started asking questions, I said, what time do you get here? And he said 4:30. And I looked at Carissa and I said, the time of death said 4:32. And he said, no. I didn't get here at 4:30 that morning. I got here at 5:40 that morning. Just kind of like, okay. Then I said, well, if you were me, who would you be talking to? He said, I'd be talking like back here. And we were like, well, we're just a couple of girls. We're not trying to go disturb them. He said, well, I give them food. I'll take y'all. We walked over there. We get about 4 feet from the tent. He looks at me and Carissa and says, no. I'm not going to bother him. Strange. Very strange. And then detective at the first, on that Saturday night that we found out, she told me 5 different things. He said that a man on his way to work called. When we got to the area, there's no red light right there. There's no stop sign. It's a one-way. No one can stop there. And she was 60 feet back from the road. And there were 3-foot concrete barriers 1 foot apart. No one could see her from the road. That was a lie. I don't know who's walking westbound at 4:07
in the morning to go to work. Yeah.
And could see her. She was 60 feet off the road. There's no lights over there. So Carissa and my husband set up on a Thursday morning, the exact same time, to see who got to work, see how lit it was. And I'll just leave it at that, because we just want them to ask us questions so we can think. And so we can be like, you're right, like this does make sense. We want a collaboration of people to sit here. I want facts. I want statistics. I did a research on 100 people falling and only 6 of them died. But it's like, you know what? Here's how I have to think of it. It's like falling off the top of your house. Like falling off the top of your house. I'm not saying you won't get a broken ankle or a broken wrist or a broken leg or a broken hip, but you're going to have all your ribs.
We were told that she was found face down. Yeah. That's another reason that the pathologist our pathologist that, we had hired, a lot of it is back. It's the back of her head. It is back of her hand, back of her arm. you're gonna fall face first.
You're not gonna fall everything to your left, but your injuries are on the back, and you have a laceration, a 9.8 centimeter laceration on your left hand side, a contusion right here, a dislocated elbow, a compound fracture from your radius and ulna. She was defending herself.
So one of the things is regarding the surveillance. So, like that law office, they have surveillance that literally their parking lot is catty corner from where my mom was found, that bridge. And it's high enough up where you could most likely see the top of the bridge. Now, they initially were going to allow us to look at the footage. So we drove another 80 miles in that next day, got to the front doors, and then they called and said, well, we can't release the footage without police involvement, even though the day before they were more than willing to work with it. And it's a law office. And so I want to know why they said no. We had an officer working with us. He was a huge, huge help. It was not his department, but he was helping. We have not heard from him.
He's ghosted us. Ghosted. He was very helpful. He's the one that told us what she was wearing. And we haven't heard from him since. That we think he got in trouble.
He's the one that showed us even Dallas police records did not give us who made the 911 call, because I wanted the audio tape, and I still want the audio tape. I want the ME autopsy, still don't have that. They withheld all of that for me. And so he screenshotted what was on his computer while we were on the phone, and he texted it to me just so I could see, oh, this is the name of the person, German international number, can't be traced. But that stuff even Dallas City would not give me. So he was extremely helpful. And then all of a sudden, after he gave us what mom was actually found in, because we didn't even know what she was wearing to even know like how to tell people to look on surveillance. Well, you had to tell them what they're looking for. And he said, I just got off shift. I will call you on my next shift, which he always did anytime we made contact. And I have not heard from him again, and it has been 2 months.
No, I don't know of any.
I don't even know his full name.
No. Maybe I need to Google him.
I mean, I've tried, but I don't know. I'm like, I don't even know his first name. You know, where do you start? I know what we know. He's a part of the military. We know his last name, and we know the division he works at. But he very well could have gotten in trouble. But I want, like, my question would be, what happened to Officer so-and-so?
So where she was found in a different zone to where her apartment was, it's only a mile away. So we've been working with, so the marshal's office is where, you know, we went, but it's the
Central Division.
The Central Division. Yeah. I'd like to set the record straight in that she was completely sober. So that is not a crutch that anyone uses and try to say that she was out of her mind or she was on pills. The toxicology report reported that she was sober. She was not suicidal, for anyone who thinks that. She would not go walking in a part of Dallas at that time in the rain and change her clothes and all of that. So, and she didn't hang out there. That's a lie. She wouldn't hang out there. So one of her best friends that just stayed the night, you know, the night before, his phone was stolen. His cell phone was stolen. Wasn't even an Apple phone. It was an old school flip phone. His phone was stolen, and that was the only communication she had with him. He had a house phone, and she couldn't get a hold of him. And he had just left that day. And then his phone stolen. His phone never been stolen. Very weird. I thought so too. Yeah, she deserves better than her grandchildren deserve better. Her daughter, her mother, sister, all of us, we deserve to know what happened. And most importantly, are they not afraid that there's someone out here doing this to someone?
Another thing that I want to clarify about one of the people that my mom had started seeing, and I had already been on my mom's call list, all of her friends that she had tried to contact, everyone, talked to all of them, searched them down even, just to talk to them. He was the final person. I was trying to leave it in the detective's hands. She didn't follow through with it. So I was like, whenever she said, your mom is going to be listed as undetermined, I was pissed. I was fucking pissed. And so I got off the phone with her, mulled it over for a couple hours, was like, then I'm going to call him because I have his number. So I did. It was so, he was like, I mean, who are you talking about? Like Kim, you know, the one you went out on a date with, the one that lives 4 blocks away. Like, he picked her up from her apartment. I actually just listened to a voicemail that I have saved to my mom saying, oh, I'm about to go on a little date, this, that, and the other. He like was in panic mode. Why would you panic? Why? What is the point of panicking? And he was like, well, I mean, who am I talking to again? Like, he thought he was talking to the cops without an attorney or something. And I was like, it's her daughter. And I was just trying to see, like, I mean, where did y'all go? Do you know if mom frequented, like, places in Dallas? If you do, can I get the names of those places? Just trying to follow up, kind of backtracking a little bit just because he was about to not talk to me. And at the very end of it, he was like, I mean, who am I talking to again? Like, what was your number again? Because I, like, star 67'd him because I didn't want him to have my number. But so then I was dumb and gave him my husband's number. But I was like totally, I was caught off guard that he did that. And yeah, 911. And so I was just like, I don't know, just the fact that he was so adamant about who am I talking to? Well, what was your number again? I mean, why do you need my number? He goes, well, I mean, just in case, like, I can come up with anything and give it to you, which is, I knew then, and I still know now, that was total, complete and utter bullshit. That's not why. So it's kind of had me freaked out a little bit because I'm like, I don't know who people know, you know? Right. And I was so terrified that he was just going to completely not talk. And I was like, so, I mean, but the cops didn't talk to you. And he was like, well, I mean, no. Well, yeah. It's like, well, I don't know. You may have been one of the last people to see her. So, I mean, seems to me like you would follow up on that. And he did not want to talk to me. He did not want to have, like, he was like, I mean, that was that one date. That was the only time. And I said, really? Because I just listened to a voicemail where literally my mom had just told her friend she was meeting up with you again. She's going on a date. It's just weird. It's too much. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for, doing this for us. This means so much. This is one of the absolute biggest things to raise awareness that has happened so far. And we've been putting things on Facebook and for someone to help us with theories and maybe feel some, empathy and, and want to kind of introduce what they think. That way we're not just running in circles, Mm-hmm.
Prior to releasing this episode, I received a text message from Brittany. She had mentioned something that I found interesting and that I'm going to go ahead and include in this episode. But she says, quote, while watching this Netflix series called Dark Desires, which is awesome, by the way, a woman was pushed or she fell from a building. 80% of the time in quote-unquote fall victims, they have multiple coxifemoral fractures. I do not recall seeing that sort of fracture in the report, something I'm going to look into more. Just wanted to let you know what I found out. So that is something interesting to note, just in case you guys are following along. As of January 30th, 2022, I received word from Carissa. As they press forward, there are things that are starting to develop, and it leads them to even more questions. She says, quote, some work that Brittany just did in regards to some measurements of injuries on her, both measurements line up perfectly with a baseball bat. One injury on her left hand fit perfectly with the wide side of the bat. The other injury on her forearm fit perfectly with the handle of the bat. So more questions indeed. Also, Brittany has been in contact with the Texas Rangers, so we're hoping they will open an investigation superseding the Dallas Police Department. Brittany then followed up with, quote, Yes, the back of her left hand had a pink contusion that measured the exact same size as the width of a baseball bat, and the laceration that was found on the anterior left arm is the exact same size as the handle of a baseball bat. Too weird. End quote. Brittany states that she actually asked questions when they were out there with the construction workers, and one of the guys had confronted them asking if they were talking about the lady that was found. He had given her a description of her and her height, saying that she stands at about chest level and about the height of the truck. They then felt prompted to show him a picture of her. He had confirmed that he had last seen her and said that he saw her, quote, last week, so give or take a week from October 16th, 2021.
All right, so Brittany did say she found some blood, put her finger, and found bits of glass. Based off my own theory, which is that she was murdered and then her body was moved. She wants a DNA test on the blood because it might not be her blood.
No. And Brittany says that on the record, they are scared to keep probing this, but they do it because they know that they have to. They also say they want a full investigation of this, a better investigation. Actually quoted from Brittany, quote, "The city of Dallas doesn't necessarily owe my Aunt Kim anything, but they do owe it to our grandfather. What we are wanting is a fair, unbiased, thorough look at this case for the DPD to provide some sort of evidence. All we want is answers, while all they want to do is close this case. The case cannot be closed if it is listed as an unexplained death."
Presley McCary is another family member of theirs that has been vocal on her TikTok about this case. So we will include her TikTok, Brittany's Facebook, Carissa's Facebooks, and all of the links they consider to be accurate.
The latest news on this case comes from Carissa, and I got this actually yesterday. So at the time of recording this, it is the 24th of January, so I got this on January 23rd, 2022. But she did say that police officially closed this case and deemed it undetermined, and she is waiting on the open records request to have access to all the files. To conclude, since both parts did jump around from event to event, Kimbrala was last officially seen alive on October 13th of 2021 by her mother when Kim went for a walk. Her body was found underneath the I-45-75 split, approximately 1 mile away from the man she had been dating. Investigators keep calling that a crack in the bridge, but it's not correct terminology. Several people claim to have seen her the week and even the day she had passed. My theory is that she had gotten into an altercation with someone. And I don't want to point fingers, but could it be someone who saw Kim after her mother did? And that she was on a balcony of an apartment during the altercation. I also believe that since the injuries that she had were more consistent with defensive injuries, and if there had been a fall, if there were injuries sustained during that fall, it would have been more likely from something like a balcony from a second or even third floor of an apartment, which is usually give or take 10 to 12 feet, not from a highway split, which usually ranges around 20 to 30 feet, I think sometimes 40 feet. I feel that basically if she received injuries from a fall from either of these heights, that they would be a little more superficial than that of a fall from a corporate type of building or skyscraper or something like that, which is, how the investigation basically treated it. I feel that whether purposely or by accident, that remains to be seen, that she was in the heat of an altercation and the person she was fighting with may have murdered her in a fit of rage, panicked, and moved her body where it was later found. I also find it very interesting that Kim's mother didn't receive a text back from the man she was dating when she expressed what had happened. I've known plenty of narcissists, for example, who will still take the time to acknowledge something like this had happened. Even if it were feigned empathy, they still would have responded. Also interesting that a single drop of blood was found on the scene with glass in it, and from what I have gathered, not at all consistent with the fall and from where Kim was found. I really, truly hope that there's some kind of DNA test done on that blood, because if they find it's not Kim's, they might find who left her there. I've spoken to several people about this all prior to releasing part 1, and it's somewhat of a comfort to know that I'm not the only one that thinks that something's up. It's crazy, and several people have reached out and expressed their sympathies to me to pass on to Carissa, Brittany, Presley, and the rest of the family for their loss, but Also because this has not once been covered by anyone in the media, which is just really bizarre to me in my honest opinion. This is another family that's gone ignored after desperately requesting help in a case that's not as cut and dry as it's been made to be. So, again, someone does know something, and we urge you, if you are listening to this, to please speak up. What if this was your mother, your friend, your daughter? You know, what if you were on the other side of this? If you know something, we urge you to please contact Dallas Police Department and tell them what you know. Please, let's just all, in some kind of like huge effort, let's just start helping some of these families more, because it's just gotten really infuriating where families are just being ignored. You know, again, just think, what if it were your friend, your daughter, your mother, your father, you know, your aunts, uncles, nieces? What if it was somebody that you loved, you know, and it had gone ignored and you were left having to do your own investigative work? I mean, it's just not fair.
This case is clearly bizarre, and you're right, a clusterfuck. I mean, what even is going on?
Right?
The planets aligned in some sort of way where we suddenly got hit with some bizarre cases.
I'm telling you.
It's crazy.
It's crazy.
I mean, we're happy to help and to cover them, you know,
Yeah.
provide a loud voice to those who need it. But evil really needs to sit back and take a massive chill pill.
No joke. I really do feel for Carissa and Brittany and their entire family. And I mean, I would have loved to have known Kim. I mean, they were telling me that Kim and I would get along really well. They all seem like just such great people who just want some fucking answers. So if any of you are listening and want to help, you know, please visit the sources in our show notes. You know, reach out to Carissa or Brittany if you think you can help. If you know anything. If you know anything, please say something. If you're a fellow podcaster even, or by chance, even if you're the media who just so happens to be listening to this, you know, please reach out. Cover their story. Let's get more eyes and ears on this case.
Yes. So up next, we will be talking about Brianna Nugent and Courtney Heater. These are a few more seriously strange, unsolved cold cases. In the meantime, make sure you listen to all of our recent ones we put out about Alex Van Dalsen, the revisited Jason Vukovich episode, and part 1 of this series, and also today's.
Yeah, be sure to review us and all that shit. You know, we will read more reviews and such next week. Amanda, do you have an ending quote?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go.
Oh, I almost just sung it.
Oh, it's a song?
I will do anything for love, but I won't do that.
So you won't sing it despite loving? Okay, I know who this is.
Who is it?
Bob Saget.
Oh, don't make me cry, please. I'm still so upset about Bob Saget.
I know.
No,
I was
not
thinking
Bob Saget, but it is somebody else we lost this week that we're recording.
Norm Macdonald.
Oh no.
Oh, we lost him last year. Who did we lose? My brain.
Not Louis Anderson, who we also lost the same day as this person.
Oh, I didn't know I named my brain Louis Anderson.
You know Louis Anderson.
No, I didn't know I named my brain Louis Anderson.
It's
Who is it?
Meatloaf.
Oh man, you know what? I did throw up the other day, and it wasn't Meatloaf. I didn't eat Rest in peace, Meatloaf.
I know. I'm so sad. And also rest in peace, Louis Anderson.
Rest in peace, Louis Anderson, and Bob Saget, and Bill Murray.
Bill Murray did not die.
Oh yeah, that's right. You mentioned him in last week's episode.
I swear to God, if something happens to Bill Murray.
Oh. Full disclosure, you guys want to go visit our Patreon, because just this two-part episode contains a shit ton of bloopers. Let me just tell you. That's gonna be...
I don't know what happened to us tonight.
Well, you know what happened to us? We were being dicks, and I forgot to put on some deodorant. But let's go ahead and sign it off. Don't be a fucking dick.
And wear deodorant.
All right, guys. Oh, one more thing before I continue. Originally, it was going to be Carissa and Brittany signing us off, but there was some audio that I just lost somehow, so...
Loser.
I am not a loser, but I am a loser. So they actually said in spirit, don't be a dick and wear deodorant. So you guys just don't be a dick.
And wear that deodorant, guys. Come on, just put it on.
Okay.
Smear it. Schmear it.
Schmear it like a bagel. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to A Nefarious Nightmare. All research done for this podcast, depending on the episode, is written by Amanda Cronin and Courtney Fenner. Scripting, editing, mastering, and sound design are done by Courtney Fenner. If you would like to visit our links, merch store, or social media, please either go to www.anefariousnightmare.com or to our link tree. That's linktr.ee/A Nefarious Nightmare Podcast. Music used for our intro and exit is by Ghost Stories Incorporated. You may find their music at bandcamp.com. Additional backing music for today's episode was provided by Epidemic Sound. Please consider leaving us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts to help us expand our audience. Thank you very much for listening, and take care.